Rants. Been a while since we've seen one of these, but I'm not done yet. Anyway, the reason for this particular rant is because there's something going on right now in the news, some current events, as you might call them, that I think warrants a response from me, something I feel I should voice my stance on. Well, I don't feel that I should voice my stance. I don't have any feelings, but I think I should say something about this. The issue in question is that of one Mark Krolikowski. Some of you may be aware of this man. If you could say man, he is the transgendered teacher that was recently fired from St. Francis Prep High School. Apparently he came out as transgendered to his employers about 2 years ago, and recently, I believe it was January, he was relieved of his duties as a teacher at this high school. It's a Catholic high school, as you might be able to tell by the name St. Francis Prep. The location of this school is in Fresh Meadows, New York. It's a prestigious school. A lot of rich kids go there. And they fired this guy because he is a transgender teacher, and they said that his dress whilst in class was inappropriate. So if I may take a few minutes, I'd like to talk about Mr. Mark Krolikowski. Now, I know you're probably thinking, geez, Dina Cola, can't you leave the poor guy alone? Why do you have to make fun of a transgendered man who's been discriminated against by his employer? Is it really necessary for you to throw in a few jokes at his expense? And I will say no, it's not necessary for me to do that. And I'm not going to do that. You know why I'm not going to do that? Because Mr. K was one of my favorite teachers in high school. Yes, that's right, folks. I was a student at St. Francis Prep High School, and Mr. K was one of my teachers. That was 13 years ago. I only saw Mr. K once after I graduated, when I went back to visit the school briefly, and that was one of the first times I've been told by several people, him and two of his students that I both knew, that I look like Frank Zappa. I think it was him that said it first. Anyway, you notice that I'm calling him Mr. K, and I'm calling him. Well, I'll tell you why that is, because, quite frankly, that's how I know him. I know he's transgendered now. I don't know if he identified as transgendered back then. It was none of my business. Anyway, I knew him as Mr. K. He always told us that's what to call him because Krolikowski isn't the hardest name to pronounce, but hey, that's what he went by. But anyway, that's what I know him as, so that's what I'm going to call him. That's what's familiar to me. Now, if anybody has any issues with me calling a transgendered person by male pronouns, referring to him as Mr. K, well, let me state it simply. Go f*** yourself! Remember, folks, PC doesn't stand for political correctness, it stands for pathetic c***. And that's what you are if you can't handle simple, honest, direct language. Now, if anybody out there knew me in high school is watching this, you may be really shocked to hear me talking like that. And believe me, I ain't even started. To those of you that are familiar with me nowadays and maybe have watched this show before, it should come to you as no surprise that I have no respect for f***ing political correctness. And holy shit is it foggy. I cannot see 20 feet in front of me. Gonna have to drive slow. Anyway, back on track here. I'd like to talk just a little bit about my experience with Mr. K. Once again, I graduated high school a long time ago. But from what I knew of Mr. K, I had 3 classes with him. 2 were religion classes, 1 was a music class. The music class was called Electronic Composition. It had to do with MIDI sequencing, and specifically MIDI sequencing in a keyboard and how it related to some other equipment, and it is technology that was on its way out at the time. Nowadays, MIDI sequencing has mostly been replaced by DAWs, what they call digital audio workstations. Instead of using a sequencer, you just plug your stuff into your laptop and away you go. In my case, that's Cakewalk Sonar, and I was using it then. I was well ahead of the rest of the class because I was well acquainted with MIDI when I took that class. Mr. K taught that class, and he also taught, I forgot if it was social justice. I think, what was it? I can't remember the 3rd class that I took from him. I'll mention the 2nd class in a second, but I think it was Mr. Pujak that taught social justice. Or was that Christian response to power and violence? I'm not sure. And if it was, then what the hell was my class with Miss Sparagno? I don't remember. But anyway, the other class that I had with Mr. K, and this is the ironic one, human sexuality and love. That's right, people. Human sexuality and love. Now, I'll give you this, or I'll give them this. It wasn't It was obviously a Catholic school, but it wasn't a religious perspective on sexuality and love. It wasn't love everybody, never ever use your genitals for pleasurable purposes. It was not that kind of class at all. They actually gave you good information. And Mr. K in particular gave good information because he was an energetic, flamboyant, friendly guy. He was a great teacher, and probably still is. Like I said, I haven't seen him in 13 years. He was entertaining. He wasn't afraid to make dirty jokes in class. I remember him making fun of Brian Boitano, calling him a flaming fag, which is cool. I don't know if Mr. K is a homosexual or I don't know what you'd call that, but I don't know if he's attracted to men or women. I know he was married to a woman at the time. I don't know if he still is. Just because you're transgender doesn't necessarily cite a specific sexual preference. But anyway, he was fun, he was entertaining, he made you want to pay attention in class. You didn't fall asleep in his class because it was engaging. It was, you know, he was always full of jokes, full of humor, he made you laugh, and it was easy to pass his class. Not that it was heavy material, it's just that it wasn't a class you wanted to not pay attention in. I had teachers that were f***ing boring, that maybe knew that their field very well, but were boring. And I struggled in their classes. I think most of us are well aware of the fact that the teachers that do the best are not only the ones that are knowledgeable on the subject of choice, but who are engaging and entertaining and keep you interested and excited. Now, some of you may think, hey, it's not a teacher's job to entertain you, it's their job to educate you. Well, f*** you! How well can you learn from somebody who doesn't capture your interest? Now, I think all of us had teachers that ranged the spectrum. I had some teachers that were nice people and some teachers that were absolute b****s. And I had some teachers that were very knowledgeable in their field and some people who were just reading from the textbook because it's all they could manage. Anybody can read from a textbook, provided you can read. But it takes a certain kind of person to teach in a field that they're excited about, and they're not just doing it because they failed at actually being a physicist, so they teach the stuff in the textbook. Those kind of teachers are rarely, if ever, interesting to learn from because they're not doing what they really want to be doing. My favorite teacher was probably Mr. Hessel. He was my global history teacher. Now, global history can be interesting, but all in all, I didn't care that much. I think a lot of my teachers were well aware, at least most of them, were well aware of the fact that I was not doing well in math, not because I was dumb and I didn't understand what was being taught, it's because I didn't care. I was a musician, and I knew that. I knew that I was not going into any math-heavy field. I understand that it's still a subject that should be taken seriously, and that school is not a place for you to clown around and just throw away your education. But at the same time, there were some things that, you know, I memorized what I had to pass the tests, and then I left it behind. I took algebra and trigonometry, damned if I remember any of it. And to be quite honest, I don't remember much of what Mr. K taught either. I know there were social issues addressed, and probably, looking back, there were probably quite a few things that I kind of agreed with then that I'd be really loudly disagreeing with it now. But hey. Actually, that was more in, I think, Mr. Pujak's class. He taught us a few things, and I'm thinking, you know, this looks nice on paper, but this isn't how anger issues are managed in the real world. But anyway, I'm talking about Mr. K. Like I said, he was a cool guy. He was a great teacher, and he was the resident sound man. So every time I performed in the auditorium, he was doing sound. So that gave me the chance to work with him on a few different occasions. I even helped him set up the stuff, and he ran my Porta studio at the senior year talent show. Before I had my Mo2 audio interface, I did all my recording in a Tascam 488 Mark II Porta studio. And I also did my backing tracks in there, and the 2 times I performed at the talent shows, junior and senior year, I was running my backing track through that. Junior year was a disaster because I was running it myself and I didn't set it up the way I should have. But senior year, he ran the board for me, put it through the PA, even brought one of his own monitors so I could hear myself, and he used it for everybody. After the disaster was the first show, I wasn't taking any chances on not being able to hear the drums, so he brought the monitor for me, which was really cool of him to do. What drove him absolutely nuts, though, was that for that senior year talent show where I played Panama and Schools Out, I had just bought my PV Trans Tube stack, and it drove him crazy how loud I was running the thing. I remember I wanted to put a mic on it, and he was saying, no, you don't need a mic on the amp. I'm like, oh, come on, I want to, hear it through the PA and get an idea what's going on out here. And he said, what's going on out here is the paint that's coming off the ceiling. When I was getting warmed up for one of my performances, a couple of girls who knew me came from the other end of the building when I did the sound check. They heard me at the other side of the building, it was so loud. And all I'll say is, Mr. K, if you're watching, you should be glad you're not working with me now, because my soldados are 5 times louder than those peevees. He even wrote when he signed my yearbook, don't buy any more stacks. I haven't bought any more stacks, but I bought a whole bunch more really loud amp heads. Anyway, back on track, Mr. K was also, from what I've seen, he was a pretty good piano player, good singer. As a matter of fact, another one of my teachers that I mentioned was one of my favorite teachers was Mr. Hessel, and Mr. Pujak was a cool teacher, another religion teacher. One of the guidance counselors who was cool was Mr. Cilio. He was a guitar player. Mr. Hessel was a guitar player. Mr. Pujak was a bass player. And another one of my favorite teachers who taught the choruses was Miss Grad, and she was a drummer. And at the faculty talent show, they had a band going. Mr. K was doing sound, but then they did the thing, Mr. Hessel goes to the mic and said, we're going to do Tour Down. Does anybody know the words? And Mr. K says, I know the words. I can sing it. And he came up and sang with them. And that was real cool. Miss Grad also brought my SATB, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, choral arrangement of Van Halen's Right Now to the prep chorus. And Mr. K did the sound, and that was, I believe, the last time I performed at the school. It might be the second to last. Mr. K and Miss Grad helped that happen. Now, personality-wise, like I said, Mr. K was a great guy. He was also really flamboyant. Not necessarily like a flaming fag, but a lot of his students and parents and teachers thought he was probably gay. Like I said, I know he was married to a woman, but if he had said at any point, hey, guess what, I'm gay, I don't think anybody would have been really surprised. Didn't necessarily expect him to be transgendered, but hey, I got no problem with that. That's his business, it's not my business. And simply put, I think his termination from the school is a fucking disgrace, okay? Now, they said that this had more to do with his behavior as concerning the way he dressed. Now, I don't think he was going to school in a halter top and miniskirt. They said that he had kind of a woman's haircut, shoulder-length hair, and he started wearing hoop earrings and had manicured nails. You know, that's hardly the worst thing I can think of him doing. They did have it was a Catholic school. They had a pretty strict dress code, and I don't know if he was necessarily in violation of the dress code, but I think I was kind of in violation of the dress code when I was a student. I always had my shirt very neat. I always had, you know, my tucked into my pants and the tie nice and straight. Just because I didn't see any point in rebelling against the damn dress code, but the one thing I refused to do was cut this. The day of registration, they said you have to have your hair neat and well groomed. So I tied it back. I said, there you go. And the teacher says, I don't remember the guy, but he says, that's not neat and well groomed. And I said, well, it's going to have to be. They didn't give me too much shit about my hair because it was pretty obvious that I wasn't going to cut it. I think it was understood that if anybody came near my hair with a scissor, I was going to take that scissor away from them and stab them. See, I think if they could deal with my long hair, they can deal with Mr. K's earrings and manicured nails. I don't think he was wearing makeup, but even if he was, it's ridiculous that they would fire somebody for their sexuality and not their record as a teacher. He was a teacher there for over 30 years. Now, he said their attitude towards him changed when he confessed to being transgender, and that doesn't surprise me at all. So let's be specific, okay? His dress wasn't the reason he was fired. It was the homophobia, or I guess transgender phobia, whatever you call it, the attitude of religion towards abnormal sexuality. Now, hold on a second. I just called his sexuality abnormal. Well, how nice is that? That isn't very nice, is it? It's neither nice or not nice. Let's not pretend here, people. It's not normal for a man to dress like a woman. Transsexuality and homosexuality and even bisexuality are not normal. But they're not bad. Let's stop looking at things that are not normal as therefore bad or unacceptable. Okay, let me put it this way. Have you ever seen the way Steve Vai's fingers move? That's not fucking normal, okay? I certainly can't move my fingers like that, and you probably can't either. But that's not bad, is it? It's not normal, but it's not bad. It's actually pretty cool. In the case of Mr. K being a woman, it's not normal, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's none of anybody else's business but his. Now, I understand that that can raise some questions with some younger teenagers and even cause a little bit of discomfort. And let's be fair, that should not surprise Mr. K, nor should it surprise any transsexual, homosexual, bisexual, whatever person in the world that somebody might not necessarily be comfortable with them at first. But that's where a little bit of education and acceptance comes into play. Hell, I think a transgender teacher teaching a class called Human Sexuality and Love and teaching about the tolerance of people of different sexuality, I think that'd be a good idea, and it'd be a pretty good PR move for religion. You know, it'd be a great chance for young Christian students to learn that there's nothing wrong with it, despite what the f***ing church has to say about it. And as far as discomfort goes, I'm sure if I talked to Mr. K now when he was dressed as a woman, it might make me a little bit uncomfortable, because it's not now how I knew him. But it wouldn't make me not like him. I liked him when he was my teacher. Why would I not like him now? It may take a little bit of getting used to, but that's all. And I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think that should come as anything unexpected. I know that homosexual and bisexual and transgender, you know, the whole spectrum, I know they want to be accepted, and they should be, but they shouldn't expect to be accepted like that if it's not how somebody knew them to begin with. If you meet somebody and you know they're gay, well, then you know they're gay from the beginning. But if somebody I didn't know was gay suddenly said, hey, guess what, I'm gay, well, okay, I'm not going to say that might be a little hard to swallow at first. I'm not going to put it that way. But, you know, I might have to, okay, give me a minute to no matter what I say, it's going to sound weird, to digest that. But, you know, give me a little while to sit with it, and it's fine. But anyway, let's come back around to the core issue here. Why was Mr. K fired? Now, I just found out about this last night when somebody told me it was on the news, okay? And, you know, he's filing suit against the school for wrongful termination. But let's just be clear here. I don't care what the church says. I don't care what the public mouths for the church say. The church has never been accepting of people of varying sexuality. The church has never been accepting of sexuality. Religion has never been accepting of sexuality, and it never will be, okay? At this point, there is no place in modern, decent society for religion, okay? Religion has spread bigotry and hatred and misery and suffering and persecution for thousands of years, and for whatever little good it's done a hell of a lot more harm. Now, I realize that as I'm saying this, some of my teachers and classmates may be taking exception, maybe even Mr. K himself. Maybe he doesn't like me talking about religion like that, because he was a religion teacher. But then again, you know me, folks. I'm not going to be anything if I'm not honest. And religion is just disgraceful. The way religion behaves, and it's maybe a school, but it is a Catholic school, it is disgraceful. To the administration that made the decision to fire Mr. K, you are f***ing disgraceful. You're morons. You're assholes. Teachers should be evaluated, like I said, based on their record as a teacher. If Mr. K was employed there for 30 years, I think he must have been a decent teacher at least. And like I said, my experience with him was nothing but positive, even when, occasionally in class, he'd bring up things and say things that I didn't necessarily agree with. For example, he supported the guy that put elephant shit on his painting. And I think that's f***ing stupid. It's not artistic expression, it's seeking attention. But anyway, Mr. K was, and probably still is, a great teacher, and there was no reason to fire him for being transgendered. If the students feel uncomfortable, which, like I said, can be understood to a degree, tell them they better f***ing get used to it. Hell, I'm sure the contrast between the way I am now and the way I was then might be really shocking to some of my former classmates, and they might be a little uncomfortable talking to me. And that's too f***ing bad. Simply put, you're going to have to get used to it, because this is the way I am. I'm not a friend of religion, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Just like Mr. K isn't going to decide that he's no longer transgendered anytime soon. The fact that he lost his job over this is f***ing disgraceful, and I came across an online petition that has a lot of signatures saying that Prep should issue a formal apology to Mr. K. Now, I might sign this, but really, I don't think that's the most worthwhile thing. A petitioned formal public apology. Now, my thoughts on apologies are best saved for another rant, but briefly, if you feel that somebody has wronged you and you want them to apologize and they won't do it, and the only way you can get them to do it is by holding a gun to their head, is that going to make you feel any better? Shouldn't an apology come from a place of remorse and not be coerced and just be something that somebody feels is right to do, that they have done something wrong and want to make amends for it? Isn't that a real, sincere apology? So I really don't think petitioning an apology is the best thing. Petitioning to get him his job back, on the other hand, that's another thing. Now, I'm going a little long here, but let me wrap up by saying, Mr. K, if you're watching, it was a really cool experience being in your classes and learning from you, working with you, especially in music classes, and sharing the appreciation of music. And thanks for your help at the talent shows. I had a lot of fun. They were my best moments there. And it was an enjoyable experience. And I just realized that I've driven somewhere that I've never been before, and I don't know where I am right now. Anyway, Mr. K, it was cool working with you in high school, and I hope you win your lawsuit. I had a generally good experience at St. Francis Prep, and I have nothing against my teacher. Well, some of them I have something against, because some of my teachers were suckers. I'm not going to say who in this particular rant, so I have that against them. But overall, my experience at St. Francis Prep High School was a positive one. Okay, my camera f***ed up, and I'm now at my destination. But let me just wrap up this rant. Nothing against my teachers or classmates at this school. But I will say to the administration that made this decision, you're a bunch of fucking stupid asswipe shitheads. Give Mr. K his job back and stop fucking with people just based on their goddamn sexuality. Anyway, I'm going to end this here. This has been Road Rants, people, and I will see you later. Oh, by the way, I do mean that. I will see you later. Road Rants is not done. I'll be giving you some more information about the future of the show at another time. See you.